Hi, it's JJ with PC Racing. We're going to do an oil change and a filter change on this KTM 350 EXCF. This oil change procedure is going to be pretty much the same on all the KTM 4-strokes. First thing we did, we have skid plate on there, so we took it off. Even if they have a hole in the skid plate, this one doesn't, so we had to take it off. But even if it's got a hole, usually it doesn't drain out like you'd like, so go ahead and just take the skid plate off. It only takes a minute to take that off of there. And to drain the oil, we're gonna take a 13 millimeter on this drain plug. Now, notice that this drain plug points straight back towards the rear wheel. So have your drain pan at the edge of it started with that, because it's gonna spray back here. I kind of push on the bolt until it's getting close, and then that way it doesn't go flying and I lose my bolt and my crush washer. Here we go, almost got it. Now see how it kind of spewed back there. And this is a bike that we purchased used. There's a lot of metal on this magnet. It's a pretty new bike. Only had 13 hours on it. So a new bike you're gonna see more metal like that. Don't freak out. After a couple oil changes, you should see less. Now this oil is coming down. And then we're also gonna take a 13 millimeter and pull out the metal factory screen. There it goes over here while this is draining out. I should mention we rode the bike first. You don't necessarily have to ride it, but you do want the bike warm. The oil will drain out much better. Here's the factory screen. We're going to take that to our parts washer and wash this all in a minute, but you can kind of put that to the side for now. And then another thing that we do that KTM, it's kind of odd. They have you drain it and then put the plugs back in, but we're going to take the oil filter out while it's all draining, and we should be able to position now the drain pan, because once we pull the filter out, it allows more air into the motor and you'll probably get a better drain. We've got this on a stand for this video. There we go, some oil coming out of the filter area. Not really the right tool to get this out of here, but it will work. So this filter is pretty dirty. Now, of course, we're going to replace this with a PC Racing flow oil filter, which is a stainless steel reusable filter. And we will also take this bike loose, lean it over from both sides, and really get this thing drained, which for this video purposes, it will stop. But I'm going to show you one of the main differences and why these PC Racing flow oil filters are so much better than a paper filter. Now, the main thing is the design is different, and this is a technology that originated in aerospace, and they use the same type of filters in Formula One and NASCAR. When you look down the center of a paper filter, I don't know if you'll be able to get that on camera, but there's a metal post with holes in it. Then they wrap the paper around the post. The only area actually flowing oil through the filter is where those holes are in the post. So it's just a small percentage of it. The stainless steel screen is strong enough to support itself, so it doesn't have a post down the center, and therefore the entire surface area is flowing oil. And we are able to get 7 times more oil through the same size filter and still filter down to 35 microns, absolute. Now, there's a confusion on the ratings because 35 microns, you can buy paper filters that might say, even 10 micron. This is a manufactured screen. Every single pore on here is 35 microns. So it has an absolute rating, a one-pass test rating of 35 microns. Paper filters being inconsistent, they test them on a multiple pass test. And in that testing process, it's allowed to pass particles 4 times the size of the rating, as long as it eventually traps down to the rating after multiple passes. So bottom line is a 10 micron paper filter is allowed to pass particles 40 microns as long as it eventually traps down to 10. Now, when you're talking 35 microns, it is so microscopic. That is the least of your concern. It is not going to do any damage to your engine. These are microscopic particles. The thing that we really like about the additional flow of these filters is KTM does not have a bypass valve on their filters. Almost every motorcycle manufacturer, car and motorcycle, has a little ball bearing, so if the filter plugs up or can't flow the oil fast enough, it'll push open the ball bearing and bypass the filter, and keep oil circulating through the motor. You never want to starve the engine for oil. KTM does not have that, so if there is some type of issue flowing oil through a KTM, you can starve the engine for oil, and that is so much less likely with the flow filter because it flows 7 times more oil. The entire surface area is flowing. Now, the reason KTM is probably able to get away with that is they use a pretty large filter for a dirt bike. You'll see a lot of the other ones, particularly the Honda filters, are about half at best of this size, and they do have a bypass valve. All the other brands do, but these tiny little filters, it's really important to get that flow through there. So anyway, we'll go on to the next step here. We're going to tilt this bike back and forth and get all this oil drained out. And then... All right, Mike is leaning the bike over and really getting a lot more oil out of the bike by doing this. And we're going to tilt it back the other way, and we'll do this again, and we'll get all the oil out of here. All right, so we've got a parts washer here at the shop. A lot of people don't have that, but if you don't, use contact or brake cleaner and clean out the metal filter that's in your KTM. And we like to initially work it from the inside out, and that will kind of wash stuff from the inside out, and then we'll go to the outside. You can also take and run it through water afterwards, which is fine. But we're going to clean all the parts, including the little drain plug with the magnet on it, oil filter cap, and again, if you want to take water to it afterwards, there's nothing really wrong with that. The main thing is you get it dry. We'll do another filter later on cleaning a flow oil filter, but they're basically the same thing. You're just gonna run solvent from the inside out and then rinse it with water and blow air from the inside out. So I've got these parts clean now. I'm gonna take them over here and just take some compressed air. And again, on the filter, we like to go from the inside out. And that way, if anything is stuck in the screen, it's gonna blow it out. And again, this is the same way to clean a flow filter, which is basically the same. And we'll do a cleaning video on that later. So anyway, we're just get everything dry. And we got the parts ready. All right, we got everything clean. We got the filter screen cleaned in the parts washer and the drain plug. And we're gonna go ahead and put the drain plug back in the bike. Get it started off by hand. It's a 13 millimeter. Make sure you got that gold colored crush washer on there. You can reuse them a few times, but after a couple oil changes, you might want to get an extra one from KTM. Get it in there snug. The filter screen gonna go back in right here. Get it tight. Now we're gonna take this bike down off of the lift, and KTM recommends leaning the bike over and filling up the oil filter cavity. KTM recommends to lean the bike over and fill the oil filter cavity about the third full. We used a bike stand. This might be a little extreme, but I think it makes it a little bit easier. So a bike stand makes it something nice to lean on. So we're just gonna fill the oil cavity up here a little bit, and then make sure our flow oil filter is going to go in here. We're going to kind of sop it in there first to make sure there's plenty of oil on the filter. Push that baby in there. We're going to put a little bit of oil on the ring here for the cap. Just a little bit, doesn't take a whole lot. And there, fits in nice. Place the 8mm bolt. If you haven't invested in a set of T-handles, highly recommend it. We've been using these for 20 years at least. All right, and we kind of go side, top to bottom there. You don't just tighten down one all the way. You only got 2 bolts, so you can't do a star pattern, but anyway, just get these snugged up, going off to each one. And we're ready to stand this bike back up and fill it back up with oil. All right, we got the bike back up, and for the 350s, they recommend about 1.1 quarts. Check your owner's manual on that. Could be a little different on different years, different bikes. The correct volume. Now, the nice thing with KTMs, and a lot of bikes have a little sight glass, so we'll warm the bike up and check that sight glass to make sure it's right in the middle where it should be. Most of the KTMs come with a little sticker that only say to use Motor X lubricants. It's a good oil, but you can see we're not using that. Use a 10W40 that they recommend. On some conditions, you might want to change the type of oil. Read your owner's manual, it'll tell you that. But a good 10W40 synthetic, any brand, whichever one's on sale is probably the right one to get. All right, one last thing we'll mention about the sight glass that's really nice on these KTMs to tell you what the oil level is correct. First of all, you need to get the bike up to operating temperature, and then let it sit for a minute or two before you check the oil level. But the bike needs to be straight up, not on the kickstand if it's a EXE model. And then you're just going to take a look at that sight level there. The oil should be in the middle after about a minute after you shut the bike off.